Did you guys have a nice break? Nice fall break? Yeah? How's your mom doing? Good? Better? She getting around some? Good. She posted something to Facebook about how she ate a little bit over the last couple days, so I guess that's good. She's getting there, huh? Why is this not go backwards? There we go. Well, I'm sorry she struggled so, but have you been getting lots of good food from people? Did anybody like the cherry cream cheese pie?
It was part of
Nobody liked it?
the
The one that I brought?
what people do.
No? Not a favorite? That's one of my favorites, man. Don't like it? Not a cherry fan? You can do it with blueberry or whatever, but I like the cherry best because it's really tart.
Email and
I like the
oh,
mix.
I don't have my stuff, so I don't want to do that now.
But you had a good break. Did you do anything or nothing because mom wasn't well?
Today.
I forgot how to talk.
I mean, literally.
Don't know.
Have a rehearsal. There you go. Yay.
Okay, Marco, you don't know.
I like it.
Y'all have like, that got your tongue this morning.
Yes.
What is that about?
So quiet this morning.
Hey, no, or nothing to chat about that. No, because we were having something. Oh, yeah.
Yes. This one.
Well, I had a good break. I'm gonna have a busy few weeks, so I went ahead and tried to get a lot done over break. Worked way ahead so that I could be ready. Are y'all gonna come to the dance next weekend? Big dance next weekend, homeschool dance next weekend. Gonna come? Well, no? It's fun. A lot of fun. Yeah, I'm hosting a party this Friday. Then I'm hosting the dance next Saturday. Then I'm hosting a party the following Friday. Then I have a week off or something, and then I'm heading out. It's that weekend. Oh, I have a trunk or treat, but it's on Saturday. It's not in my house. And then I'm going out of town.
Before. During way. People are. This is fun.
No Tyler today.
Yeah. Under test. Give it a test. And yeah. Oh,
Where's Evan? Come on, Evan.
Are you happy the weather's starting to get a little cooler? Yeah, me too. I like this time of year. It could get cooler and I'll be happy for sure. Oh, did you see that? See that plant growing in that cup there? Those are the beans that sprouted best. Morning. When we did our lab with the navy beans, those are the beans that sprouted the best. I just stuck them in some soil because I was curious to see if they'd grow, and look what they're doing. Isn't that wild? Look at that. I'm gonna have my own little beanstalk. Maybe I can go get a hen with golden eggs or something at the end. Oh, good. You can stick your labs over there on the, yep, in the folder. Thank you, sir. All righty. Excellent. Excellent. We are all here. How was your break?
Right.
Yeah, did you do anything fun? Oh, you played or you went to one?
Play.
Okay. What position do you play?
Center.
Right. Very good. Did y'all win? Very good. Even better. But if you lost, that's still very good. You got out there and did it, right? Uh-huh.
7-7.
Oh,
We scored 2, and then
wow.
pitcher walked the bases loaded, and then he started striking hard in the base.
Oh my gracious. Wow. Well, that sounds like it was an exciting game too. So this is fall ball, right? This time of year? Very good. Where do you play? Okay. All right. Well, very good. Well, all right, everybody. Here we are back together. One big happy family. Are we ready? You ready to go? You got your binders out or whatever so you can check on answers as we go? Let's see. So today we're starting to talk about cell processes. We're going to review first, and we've talked about this before, how matter, life, is organized. So this is how matter is organized. What are atoms? Who can tell me what an atom is? What's a good definition for an atom? Anybody got a good definition? A what? Chemical compounds do make up cells, but we're wanting a definition for atom. What's an atom? So an atom is the smallest unit of matter. It typically has 3 main parts: protons, neutrons, and electrons. And it's the basic building block of matter. It's the smallest part of an element. So an element is not a compound. It's all on its own. You put elements together to make compounds, right? And an atom is the smallest unit of an element. We do have one atom that does not have all 3 particles. What atom is it that doesn't have all 3 particles? Do you know? So usually atoms have protons, neutrons, and electrons. You girls who did chemistry, you should know. What atom doesn't have all 3? I'll tell you what it's missing. It doesn't have a neutron. What atom doesn't have a neutron? It's hydrogen. Hydrogen's the first on our periodic table, and it's very small and very light, and it does not have a neutron, right? So those are what atoms are. So then what's an element? Tell me what an element is. It's got a good definition for an element. Anybody? All right, so an element is a pure substance consisting of one type of atom, and it can be identified by its atomic number, which is its number of protons. And all elements are found on the periodic table of elements and have a chemical symbol. So last year in chemistry, sometimes we would hang up our big periodic table. It covered the whole fireplace, right? It was huge, and we'd hang it up and you could see all the different elements on it. So sometimes we bring it out for biology, but not usually. You don't usually need it as much, at least not in this part of this unit of biology. But elements are pure substances, meaning you can't break it down and get another kind of substance. So it's giving oxygen as an example of an element. What's another example of an element? Can anybody give me an example of an element? How about, is water an element? No, why?
It's made up of elements.
It's made up of elements. What elements are in water? Oxygen and hydrogen, right? So you get oxygen and hydrogen together, you've got a compound. It's not an element, but that means oxygen and hydrogen are elements, right? Other elements, things like titanium, lead, carbon, argon, neon, lithium, beryllium, einsteinium, californium, right? We have some really fun ones in there, fun names. All right, there's a Tennesseeum, because that's where it was found. Yeah, yeah. All right, so then what's a molecule and a compound? Do you guys remember? There's a difference between molecules and compounds. Does anybody remember the difference?
I don't even know what a molecule.
What's a molecule?
It's like little tiny things and stuff like water is molecules.
Right, okay. So a molecule is more than one atom together. A compound is when it has different atoms together. So you can all molecules are compounds, but not all compounds. Well, hang on, wait a minute, I'm gonna say it wrong. I'm gonna say it backwards. So wait a minute. If you have it's easier to define a compound by saying it's made up of two different elements. And if you have, like, you can have a molecule of oxygen, because oxygen never goes around by himself. He just doesn't. He's always holding hands with another oxygen. So you always have O2. So that's oxygen. And that would be a molecule. So a molecule is going to be defined as two or more atoms joined together chemically, and they can be the same atoms. So OO, oxygen together, or nitrogen together, two N's, these are all molecules. Or you can also have this, right? But this is also a compound. Water would also be a compound, because this is when two or more different elements combine, right? So molecules are when two or more atoms join together, and compounds are when two or more different come together. So all compounds are molecules, but not all molecules are compounds. That's what I was afraid I was going to say backwards. All right, so here are some types of molecules. And molecules we also consider as having non-ionic bonds. We don't ever call ionic compounds molecules, even though they're two different and they could fall under that. Things like salts, anything with an ionic bond, we don't call them molecules, we call them compounds. But these are all what you would call organic molecules. And that means they contain carbon. So anything that contains carbon, we tend to call it an organic molecule. So these are some different types. So carbohydrates, you're probably used to hearing carbohydrate in reference to foods you eat. What's an example of a carbohydrate you might eat? Carbs. People say, eat your carbs, don't eat too many carbs, eat your carbs if you're going to exercise. Carbs. So things like breads, starch, potatoes, those are carbohydrates, right? So monosaccharide, which is a type of sugar, a sugar is also sugars and starches are carbohydrates. So a polymer would be a starch. So if you look there, you see that monosaccharide, you see how it's shaped like a little hexagon? Okay, so that's one sugar by himself. But when you put them together in a big long chain like that, you get a starch. And a starch is a polymer, because they call this first guy by himself a monomer. What's mono mean? It's mono. That's one of those Greek Latin roots. Mono means one, poly means many. So one by himself is a monomer. A bunch together is a polymer, right? And then they contribute to things like cellular structure. So this is why a lot of people on diets, you can really see it in this picture. A lot of people on diets will try to reduce their sugar and their carbohydrate intake, their starch intake. Sugar is a carbohydrate, but starch intake. And the reason they're trying to reduce their starch intake is because starch, see how it's that big long chain of all those little monomers stuck together to make a polymer? Well, it gets in your body, it breaks apart, so that starch becomes sugar, and your body treats it accordingly. So even if you take all the sugar out of your diet, if you're eating a bunch of starch, you're not making any difference, right? So then we have nucleic acids. So if you look at that picture there where it says nucleic acid, it shows a nucleotide. Where do we find nucleic acids? Do you know? That's in our DNA and our RNA. So that's our genetic material is made up of nucleotides, which are nucleic acids, either put together in a double helix, and you will find them in chromosomes in your cells. Then we have proteins. Okay, so the the DNA is actually going to tell your body what proteins to make. And we'll be doing this in lab. We did a little bit last year. We'll be doing it again this year. So we see how proteins are made. But here's the cool thing about proteins. So amino acids are these little building blocks. You can think of them like Legos that go together and they make a protein. And they're called peptide bonds that hold them together. So when you have a bunch of it together, they call it a polypeptide, right? There's poly again, lots of peptide bonds. And then what's especially interesting about proteins is you get this big long chain of amino acids, right? But it's useless unless it is folded up into a, like origami, into a very particular shape. If I took a piece of paper and I folded it into an origami crane, you might pick it up and instinctively go and fly it around, right? And if I folded it into an origami frog, you've ever seen those where you like tap them on the butt and they hop? You ever seen the little origami frogs that you tap and they hop? You might instinctively, because you knew when you saw it, this is a frog, I'm going to treat it like a frog. This is a bird, I'm going to treat it like a bird. Your body does the same thing. But when it's a flat piece of paper, your body doesn't know what to do with it. So it's folded into a shape your body recognizes and can use. So lipids are what make up our fats and waxes in our body. So we have lipids are made up of fatty acids. They form like triglycerides, for example, and that's adipose cells. Do you know where you might find adipose cells in your body? Anybody want to guess? You got any body fat anywhere? You guys don't have much because you're young and spry. Your hips, your rear end, right here on your belly, anywhere you can grab and feel fat tissue in your body, that's adipose cells. And they are that color too. They're yellow and they're like kind of jelly-ish, gummy-ish almost. So carbohydrates come into two main categories. Does anybody know? So you've got simple sugars or saccharides, complex sugars or polysaccharides. There's that poly again, meaning many, right? So when you have a simple sugar by itself, it's called a saccharide. When you put a bunch of them together, it's called a polysaccharide. So your simple sugars or your saccharides can be either a monosaccharide or an oligosaccharide. So these are just different types and it shows kind of molecularly how they're different. And then this is a fun word, your complex sugars are homopolysaccharides or heteropolysaccharides. What do homo and hetero mean? They mean different things. They're opposites. What do they mean? What's homo mean? Same. What does hetero mean? Different, right? So what you get here is the same type of saccharide or starch in a chain and different types of saccharides or starches in a chain, right? All right, so let's talk about our proteins. Now, I was saying that proteins have to be folded up for your body to recognize them, right? So here are just some examples of proteins. So it says at the top, those are amino acids with electrically charged side chains. You see those little, see at the bottom where there's like a plus on that one and a plus on that one? And then there's like a negative over here on these two. Those interact in your body in very specific ways because they have electrically charged, what we call side chains. It's like a little piece that sticks off the end. It's like if you took your little origami crane and you had like a tiny battery on one part, like stuck on the outside that would interact with things, right? Or a magnet or something like that would interact. And then you have amino acids with polar uncharged side chains. So polar means that the whole molecule has a bit of a charge that tends to lean one way or the other way, and that impacts how they interact. Molecules and compounds in general are going to interact with one another based mostly on electricity, right? We learned about this last year. Your number of electrons, whether this compound and this compound or this molecule have a negative charge or a positive charge, it's going to impact how they interact with each other. And then you have special cases, these are some over here. And then you have amino acids with hydrophobic side chains. What is hydrophobic? I bet you can figure it out. What's hydro? Hydroelectric, hydrolysis, hydrate. What do you think hydro means? If you're dehydrated, what are you lacking? Water. So hydro means water. So what would hydrophobic mean, do you think? What's phobic? What's a phobia? A fear. So what do you think hydrophobic means? Afraid of water. Yeah. So what that means is these are going to repel water. They're not going to be soluble in water. They will not dissolve in water. They do not interact well with water. They push away water. They're afraid of water. Okay. All right. So now we got to get some examples. So I need you to think. So structural proteins work in support. So an example might be insects and spiders use silk to make their cocoons, webs, respectively. Collagen and elastin provide fibrous frameworks for animal connective tissues. Keratin is the protein that's in hair, horns, feathers, and other skin appendages, nails, things like that. So then those are examples of structural proteins that give support. So then we have storage proteins. Storage of amino acids would be a function. What do you think would be an example? Where do we find amino acids? Don't know. So here's an example. So ovalbumin is egg white. You've had a fried egg before, right? Everybody's had a fried egg before? See the yellow, or a hard-boiled egg where you can really see the yellow and the white separated? Right, okay. So that albumin, sometimes they'll call it, or ovalbumin, that is the white, the egg white, and it's used as an amino acid source for developing embryo. Casein is a protein in milk, and it's a major source of amino acids for baby mammals. And then plants have storage proteins in their seeds. So transport proteins, transporting other substances. Anybody have a guess of what kind of proteins might transport other substances? No? So hemoglobin is a great example. Where do you find hemoglobin? You know? Have you ever been to the doctor where they prick your finger and they put that tiny glass tube on your finger and it sucks blood up in the little tube? What are they checking for? Not blood pressure. They're checking for your hemoglobin count. So basically what they're doing is they want to see how many red blood cells you have. So hemoglobin's in your red blood cells and it carries oxygen to the rest of your body. It's like a little basket and it catches the oxygen molecule in the little basket and it hangs on to your red blood cell and it goes all through your bloodstream and it brings oxygen to your muscles, your nerve cells, your brain, your organs. Without hemoglobin, you get a problem called anemia. And that's because your iron is low. Hemoglobin needs iron as part of its structure. So if you don't have enough iron in your diet, you start to lack hemoglobin, and then you can have all kinds of problems because your body's not getting enough oxygen to its tissues. So hemoglobin transports oxygen from the lungs to other parts of the body, and then other proteins transport molecules across cell membranes. Okay, hormonal proteins. And these help with communication and they coordinate organisms' activities. Okay, everybody has to know at least one hormone. What's an example of a hormone? Anybody know? Hormone. Nobody knows any hormones? How about estrogen, testosterone, progestin, those kinds of things. Also, steroids. So insulin, that's a good example too. Produced by your pancreas helps regulate the concentration of sugar in your blood. Receptor proteins are, they have a response of a cell to chemical stimuli. So these are things like receptors built into the membrane of a nerve cell that detect chemical signals released by other nerve cells. We have contractile proteins, and those are involved in movement. So this is an easy one. Where do you think you're going to find contractile proteins if they're involved in movement? What part of your body does your moving? What does the moving?
Muscles.
Your muscles. Right. Good job, Evan. So actin and myosin are responsible for your muscles in particular. And then there's some other ones that work in organisms that have like cilia and flagella, little cells that move through different types of locomotion. So actin and myosin are super cool. And when we get into like physiology and stuff, I think that's fourth quarter mostly. You ever seen a ratchet? Anybody know how a ratchet works? It's usually like a gear that clicks into a little hole and it pulls something along tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. That's exactly how actin and myosin in your muscles work. They work exactly like a ratchet, just really cool. All right, defensive proteins protect against disease. So these are things like antibodies. that combat bacteria. So if this is my whole dress is covered in bacteria, by the way, these are all bacteria. So if I come in contact with a bacteria, my body has immune cells called antibodies that are gonna or proteins, really, not cells, but they're going to basically recognize what that invader is and try and trigger my immune system to help fight it, right? And then we have enzymatic proteins, and these are things like digestive enzymes that help in hydrolysis of polymers, breaking down your starches, things like that. Amylase is a good example. That's in your saliva. That's why you start digesting sugars and starches in your mouth before they even get to your stomach. You start digesting them in your mouth. So lipids, these are fats. And we have different kinds of lipids. We have what we call triglycerides. So things like, you know how bacon fat is solid at room temperature? It's because it's a triglyceride. And then oils are liquid at room temperature, right? You've got cooking oil in your kitchen. And this is kind of what they look like. That's glycerol. And then saturated fats, fatty acids are in things like cheeses, and unsaturated fatty acids are in things like nuts. And what it means by saturated versus unsaturated is whether there are double bonds, which you don't really need to worry too much about. We have phospholipids, and they're shaped like this. They have a hydrophilic head and a hydrophobic tail. Okay, we just said what hydrophobic means. It means fearing water. So what do you suppose hydrophilic means? So philos is a Greek word for love. So if one end is water, fears water, the other end loves water, right? So these were what make up your cell membrane, your phospholipid bilayer. The outside doesn't like water, and the inside, or the outside, sorry, does like water. The inside does not like water, and it keeps water inside the cell from going out and water outside the cell from coming in too much. So then we have steroids. So I think I said steroids. Oh, I did. Said is that protein. I wasn't thinking clearly. Sorry. I apologize for that. Steroids. Still early. Steroids are lipids, not protein. Sorry, lipids. They are things like cholesterol, testosterone, estrogen. These are hormones too. Like you would say that these are hormones, but they're lipid-based hormones, not protein-based hormones, which is where my brain went dead. Waxes. So things like what you find in your ears or what you find in a beehive, like my neighbor's beehive over there, or on plant leaves. These are also types of lipids. All right, so let's look again at how cell membranes work. This is our hydrophilic, hydrophobic situation that we just talked about.
For over 130 years,
Yeah.
University has been innovating our approach to higher education.
Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to look at the structure of cholesterol and the function of cholesterol in the cell membrane. Cholesterol is found throughout animal cell membranes. It is not present in the cell membranes of plant cells, as they have a cellulose cell wall that helps to support the cell membrane. Cholesterol is a lipid that is identifiable by its four-wing structure. It consists of four linked hydrocarbon rings, forming the steroid portion of the molecule. Extending from one end of the steroid is a hydrocarbon chain. Extending from the other end is a hydroxyl group. Cholesterol is amphipathic, which means part of it is hydrophilic and other parts are hydrophobic. The steroid portion and hydrocarbon tail are hydrophobic, whilst the hydroxyl group is hydrophilic. Within the phospholipid bilayer, the cholesterol sits in this membrane with the hydroxyl group, which is polar and hydrophilic, in with the polar and hydrophilic phospholipid heads. The hydrophobic steroid rings and hydrocarbon chain portions of the cholesterol molecule are found embedded in the hydrophobic portion of the membrane with the phospholipid fatty acid tails. These cholesterol molecules carry out an important function in the cell membrane. They function in both regulating the fluidity of the cell membrane as well as regulating the permeability of the cell membrane. The location of cholesterol between phospholipids helps stabilize the membrane, giving it additional support in the absence of a cell wall. This stabilization allows the cell membrane to remain fluid but reduces the fluidity overall of the cell membrane. In addition, the presence of cholesterol between the phospholipids prevents the phospholipids from coming into contact, which prevents them from stiffening or crystallizing. Cholesterol's presence in the cell membrane is also in regulating the permeability of the cell. If the cell membrane is too fluid, the permeability of it would be too much, which would allow too many molecules to pass into the cell. If it was too stiff and had too little fluidity, not enough molecules would be able to pass through into the cell. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the
All right, so let's have a look. So we're going to go with the letters, not the numbers. So letter A says the most common compounds that contain carbon, where are they going to go? It's going to go to, who's got their answers? A goes to where? Well, what you got, Everly? Yeah, organic compounds, 11, right? B, type of nucleic acid that plays an important role in the production of proteins, Everly. There we go, RNA. Compounds that do not contain the element carbon goes to 12, inorganic compounds. Remember, organic means it has carbon, so inorganic means it does not. D, type of nucleic acid that passes from parent to offspring. What's that going to be? That's your DNA. That's letter D, goes to 17. E, very large organic molecules made of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. What you got, Everly? That one's going to be proteins. So E is proteins. Check that one. Make sure you have that right. All right, F, large organic molecules made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and in some cases, sulfur. Anybody know? Well, F's going to go with, there's your nucleic acid. Actually, are those right? This might be backwards. I have to double check that. Anyway, I'll double check it. I think they're right though, because I pulled it right out of the book. All right, number, where are we? G, the smallest unit of most compounds. What you got? Here we go. So that is H, and H goes with number, hello, why is it not going? What? Oh, H didn't come. Yes, but it is Adam. It's just animation's out of order. I would be, I goes with 9. So 9 is I. That's compound is a chemical combination of 2 or more. And there was H there. Okay, J. I don't know why H didn't light up. I think the animation's just out of order. J, a type of protein that speeds up chemical reactions is 15, an enzyme, right? All right, K, the smallest unit of an element is that, oh, that's 8. So wait a minute, where did we say atom was? H? Oh, molecules that make up proteins. Oh, well then where does H? Oh, amino acids. Sorry, guys, I'm reading them out of order. Okay, H, 14 is H, atom is K. There you go, 8 is K. And then a substance that cannot be broken down into simpler substances is an element. So your answer should be LKIGACEHJFDB. All right, over to this next one, carbohydrates. What's an example of a carbohydrate? Anybody write one? So it's going to be a sugar or a starch. And then what type of compound is a fat? Number 2. A fat is a lipid. And they help form cell membranes and what? Cholesterol is what we need there. And then enzymes are going to be what type of a compound is an enzyme? Yeah. Do what? I couldn't hear you. You don't know? Okay, protein. So number 4 is protein. And they help form cell membranes, organelles, speed up chemical reactions. Basically, that's really what they need for speeding up chemical reactions. All right. DNA is what type of compound, Everly? It's a nucleic acid. Very good. And it's direct all the cell's functions and genetic material. It contains your genetic materials. So your answers are sugar, starches, lipids, cholesterol, proteins, nucleic acids, and genetic materials. All right. So the cell and its environment. Cell membrane, a blank cell membrane, is one that allows certain molecules or ions to pass through it by means of active or passive transport. What type of membranes do cells have? We modeled it with our little bags and test tubes and iodine. Selectively permeable, right? I mean, some things come through, some things do not. What processes require the cell to expend energy to move the materials? Those are what you're going to call active transport. You need energy to bring things through the membrane. While what kind of processes are done without using energy? If active transport uses energy, then passive transport is done without energy. So it's important to note the membrane can also block the passage of materials depending on the conditions inside or outside the cell. Let's talk about diffusion. We talked about this in lab. This was our potato cube lab, our iodine lab, right? Simple diffusion is when it permits the passage of only small and non-polar molecules across a plasma membrane. Small, non-polar. Facilitated diffusion is when you are passing larger and polar molecules across a plasma membrane. So the molecules can pass in the direction and opposite of the concentration gradient, meaning this is going against like sort of the passive process. So that's facilitated diffusion. So then we have, okay, here's examples of our passive transport, okay? So osmotic pressure is a good example. What's osmotic pressure? Do you remember what osmosis is? So it's how much water is in something, basically. So the pressure that must be applied to the solution side to stop fluid movement when a semi-permeable membrane separates a solution from pure water. So osmosis is movement of water or whatever across a membrane. So what does it mean if you have a higher concentration of solute? Like let's pretend that we're going to say salt. Salt in water is our solute here, salty water. So what is it when you have more salt outside of a cell than inside a cell? So we call that hypertonic. Look right here. You see this? Look right here. See this guy? If there's water inside here, but saltier water out here, this salt wants to balance the amount of salt on each side of the membrane. So it's getting crushed, basically. So then what's it called if you have a higher solute concentration inside? So look, you can probably figure this out. Hypertonic is higher concentration outside than inside. So what is it going to be if the higher concentration is inside than outside? The other way around. What's the opposite of hyper? Do you know? Hypo. Hypotonic. If you say somebody has hyperthyroidism, their thyroid runs too fast, basically. They're probably like really skinny and they're like have a lot of energy and whatever. And if you have hypothyroidism, your thyroid doesn't work as well and you can gain weight and whatever because your body's just not burning fat as quickly as it should be. And then if it's the same, it's iso. Iso means the same. So tonic here meaning tone, pressure. So hypertonic, hypotonic, isotonic. And then we have aquaporins, and these are integral membrane proteins, like this guy right here, okay? And it's a little protein that makes itself a little channel that things can pass in and out of the cell through it. It makes like a little tube. So some examples, active transport proteins are proteins that transport substances across biological membranes. Transport proteins are found within the membrane itself where they form a channel or a carrying mechanism to allow their substrate to pass from one side to the other. So you have channel proteins that act like a pore right here. Just pop on through. You've got gated channel proteins. See, these have gates. They open a gate to allow things to pass through. Just float on through the tube. And then you have carrier proteins, which look like this, which is less of a open a gate and let it pass through and more of a let's physically move the substance through the membrane. So here's just different pictures of your types of proteins. Here's a channel protein, things just come in and out, right? And then these are different types of carrier proteins. They have to go through it rather than just floating through a little tube. All right, so looking at this one where it says the cell and its environment, understanding main ideas. Water moves out of the cells of a saltwater fish and into the ocean. Anybody have an answer for that one? The process is osmosis. It's water moving across membranes. Oxygen moves from the lungs into the bloodstream. That's diffusion. Remember, we talked about it after the lab, the lab with the iodine and the starch. We had a whole thing where we talked about why do sick people sometimes, why they give sick people oxygen masks because of diffusion. All right. And then sodium is pumped out of a nerve cell. That's going to be a very active transport. It even says pumped there. So it tells you it's moving. So let's see. How is osmosis different from diffusion? Osmosis involves water. Compare and contrast active and passive. Active needs energy. Passive transport does not need energy. Two methods of active transport would be a protein transport, which is what we just talked about. Another would be engulfing, and that's when your cell will actually or your vacuole within your cell will actually bend itself around a substance and grab it, which is really kind of neat. And state one reason that cells are so small. Well, materials have to move through the cell membrane, so it has to be small enough to facilitate that. All right, so how about these? If they're true, write true. If they're false, change it. Selectively permeable means letting some but not all substances pass through. True or false? True, very good. Osmosis is the process by which molecules tend to move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. True or false?
False.
False, why? Pat, because it's diffusion. Osmosis involves what? Water. Diffusion involves other things, right? But osmosis involves water. Very good, though. The process by which water moves across a selective permeable membrane is called diffusion. What did we just say? Is it diffusion? If it's water, it's what? Not diffusion, it's osmosis. Right, it's what we just said. Diffusion and osmosis are types of active transport. Are they active? Did it require energy for that iodine to make its way into your potato? No, they're passive, right? Passive transport requires energy. True or false? Passive. Does it need energy if it's passive? Come on, think about it. It's not hard. No, active requires energy. Okay, so we're going to talk about photosynthesis a little bit. And in a minute, I'm going to have to step away for a second because I have to prep something for a lab, but you'll be watching a video when we do it. So remember that autotrophs do what? They use inorganic sources of energy like light, and they make it into food that they can store. Examples of autotrophs? Somebody give me an example of an autotroph. Any autotroph. Makes its own food. Tree. Thank you, Emerson. All right. Heterotrophs, remember, use organic sources such as other living things, right? So what's an example of a heterotroph? Any heterotroph. A lion. Great example. And then photosynthesis is the process by which some autotrophs take what and turn it into what? Light and water. Very good. And they turn it into sugar. Yeah. And sugar and oxygen, right? So there we go. And light and carbon dioxide and water. Yep. All right. Very good. So chemical energy, ATP. Let's talk a little about ATP. You guys aren't going to do a whole lot with ATP, but I want you to understand it anyway. ATP stands for what? Anybody know? It's a big one. Adenosine triphosphate. This is your energy molecule. All right. These are in your mitochondria, where we have them in ours. And this is your primary energy carrying molecule. All right. It's the end product of the process of photophosphorylation. That's a fun word. Photophosphorylation just talks about specifically what's happening with a molecule. And that's in the process of photosynthesis. And it adds a phosphate group to adenosine triphosphate, which means it becomes ADP. So basically what happens is you have ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate. Di means two. You add a phosphate to it and it becomes adenosine triphosphate. And that little adding and removing of that phosphate is how we basically store and produce energy. Okay. So cells release energy by the removal of a phosphate group, converting ATP to ADP. All living things use ATP. In addition to being used as an energy source, it's also a signals transduction pathways for cell communication, and it's incorporated into your DNA. It's very important. Cells regenerate ATP from ADP and only contain small amount of ATP at any given time. So ATP is a fleeting substance. Oh, thank you. Those are our planarians for next week. Thank you. And they come and go. All right. Other molecules are related to ATP, have similar names like ADP. There's also an AMP. There's a cyclic AMP. Just things to know. You guys aren't going to be responsible for that. So pigments absorb light, right? So a green pigment absorbs all wavelengths of light except for what? Green. A red pigment absorbs all wavelengths of light except for red. It reflects it, so that's what you see. So chlorophyll is a pigment that absorbs all wavelengths of light except green, which it reflects. We have these things called thylakoids. These are inside your chloroplast, and this is actually where, on the membranes of the thylakoids, is where your photosynthesis takes place. And then you have this stuff called stroma, and it's just kind of the fluid that everything is sitting in. So while you watch this video, I have to prep something for lab that's time sensitive. So I'll be back in 1 second while you watch this. It should not take me but the 2 minutes this is going to take. This is a graphic example of how photosynthesis works. Great video. So that's where your photosynthesis is taking place. So let's look at these real quick. So I'm just going to pop these answers up and I want you to check them against yours because time is kind of moving quickly here. So take a second and look at those and make sure that you have the right answers. So you have carbon dioxide and water with sunlight are going to give you oxygen and sugar, in that case, sucrose. And then you have your raw materials of photosynthesis or your carbon dioxide and your water, and they're going to produce your oxygen and your sugar. Why is sunlight written above the arrow? Because it's your source of energy. Where does photosynthesis occur? In the chloroplast, specifically on the thylakoid membranes. And then your answers for these other ones are your process that we're describing here is photosynthesis. Pigments are colored compounds. Your main pigment is in your chloroplast. Your stoma or stomata are your small openings on your underside of your leaves that bring in your gases. And an organism that makes its own food's an autotroph, a heterotroph does not. Let's real quick look at respiration, just real fast. Your steps are as shown, and then we have something called Krebs cycle. Y'all are not gonna be responsible for a Krebs cycle. It gets a little crazy. I'm gonna come back to that. There are other ways of making ATP from glucose without oxygen, such as anaerobic respiration and fermentation. Photosynthesis versus cellular respiration. So they're actually chemical opposites. They're opposite equations. Photosynthesis goes one way. There's your photosynthesis. Oxygen goes the other way. They're the exact same reaction in opposite form. And that's when you include all of your different cycles, and it gets very complicated and you're not responsible for that. So I just wanted to show you. So fermentation real quick. This is important because this is what's going on in lab today. So fermentation, you have different types. You have alcoholic fermentation, and that's where you get an ethyl alcohol instead of a lactic acid as a waste product. So this is what you get with yeast, beer, and alcohol. This is yeast right here. It's what I'm working with. Yeast is a fungus, right? And then you also have lactic acid fermentation. And this is what happens with, for example, Lactobacillus acidophilus, which you're going to find in your yogurt. And okay, real quick, I will let you look at actually, you can come back and look at that. I'm going to come back to cellular respiration for you. Okay, here's these. We are running a bit behind this morning, sorry. You can check those answers, and that'll be in your slides, of course. Okay, real quick before I show you the video I was going to show you. It's almost October, so what's that mean, girls? Why is October special? He won't know, you'll know. Why is October special? What happens in October? Tinker Day. Tinker Day is awesome. Since you don't know, let me just tell you. It's a holiday at my college. And basically, they get the day off school and they get to hike a mountain. And it's amazing. But they also get to eat donuts. But what I do, check your email. You're going to have a big midterm bonus point opportunity. You want that. You do. Okay. It's a midterm bonus point opportunity. It's going to be in your email this week, and it's going to tell you what you need to do with regards to Tinker Day. It involves dressing up or doing some things. And if you do those things, you can get bonus points on your midterm. All right. I'm going to go back to this video for you real quick, and I'm going to let you watch it while everybody files in for their next. Where'd it go? Nope. Back. There. All right. I'm going to play this one for you while everybody settles in. Kind of longer. Actually, I'm not, because we're already over time. Let me do this. Y'all be sure to check your, I'll be sure to mention it, that you need to watch it in that email. But you be sure to watch this, because it's very helpful. Okay? Is that good? All right. All right, you good. Grab your lab stuff. We ran over. I don't like to run over. I try not to, but sometimes we just do. All right, if y'all want to come in, you may.